Hey everyone, sorry about the delay in getting new pages up. Life has just kind of gotten crazy and in the way. Nothing bad. And I had the chance to do some teaching, so I needed to jump on that one. Christmas is around the corner. So today's project is a different background for your pages in your journal. This one is done on a fusible interfacing. It's woven and then fused and then tulle put on top and then stitched like crazy, along with a little paint and a little stamping and all that. This is the one I did to see, hey, will this work? And I like it, so I'm going to turn this into my new page. I'm trying it a little different this time. On the bottom I have just a regular interfacing. My sewing machine and I and fusibles, we're just not getting along real good right now. So I'm going to try this and see how it works. I have it on a foam core board because it's not fusible. And so I pinned every row in place. I'm using a mixture of papers, ribbons, and fabric. And most of them I like to tear. Some of them, most of these I've cut, but on the other one I tore. I like that texture, and on this one, most of this is old doilies and linens. And you know those pillow slips that are too thin that if you just look at them cross-eyed they tear? That's what's in here. Lets you salvage all kinds of goodies. So I will continue to work on this, and we'll do each step as we go, and I'll put it all together and give you exactly what you need for a new page. Thanks. Okay, I decided to weave a strip or two here. I like to flip the strips up so that I can just lay it down. Now I'm going to use this rickrack. And because of how it is, I'm going to try to put it so the bumps, well, it's not going to work. So the bumps kind of go up into the next row like this. You pull these down. And if you want to adjust your placement before you trim everything off, because if you're like me, you just started with a pile of stuff and hope everything's long enough. One thing I can say is when I was placing this row of paper right here, got to have the king where you could see him. I just thought he was just, you know, top dog, so he needed to be where you could see him. And I just pinned this all in place. And I think my next one's going to be a strip of paper. And I've tried to do this where every page is, every strip is something different. So there's not a lot of repetition. So this one, the papers, when you flip them up to hold them, they don't want to stay. So because this row has the papers in it, I am going to go ahead and put these down one at a time. I'll wiggle that into place. The papers stay pretty good, so there's not a lot of things you need to do as far as pinning with that one. And I will continue on. So I have it all sewed together. I really missed the lines for my interfacing, but it's together. It's nice and strong. And you know what? It's okay because I'm going to put a piece of paper on the back when I'm all done. So now I'm going to go stamp and decorate it, but I'm going to take you with me. So I've got my fabric that I have made, and I have some paints. I'm going to use the Luminaires because I wanted a little bit of sparkle. Got a bunch of stamps, and I'm sure somebody's going to ask what I'm working on. This is my ironing pad. It was the only thing I could find that was soft and squishy for some of the stamps I'm going to use because they're really hard. So I am taking the Luminaire paint, and I'm going to use a paper towel and kind of brush it off. I kind of want to do a dry brush on this. Of course, on the paper it's going to go great. And you just put down a little bit of color. Hit and miss wherever it is you want. And don't, you know, you can still get it on your fabrics. And you just put it on, hit and miss. You can put it on thick, but you're going to be stitching over this, so kind of keep that in mind. Now I'm using a Dynaflow, which is a watery paint. And I'm just putting color down. There is no rhyme, reason, pattern. It's complete randomness. Just to add some more colors. There's a lot of color going on here, which, you know, for me that's cool. But, you know, you could easily do this with any color scheme you want. You're never ever set in the same way I'm doing it. So I'm just going to kind of blot this because it's pretty wet. And I'm going to do some stamping. I got these really cool little wooden, well, they're supposed to be wood, but they're not. Little block stamps on clearance at Hobby Lobby. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the coppery color and a foam brush. And I'm just going to put it on there. So, hey, we're going to learn this together because this is my first time for using these stamps. So I'm really anxious to see how they work. This is why we have the pad, because these are really hard stamps. Doesn't show up a whole lot, but it's pretty cool. Hopefully you can see that. Let's try something with a little more color. Let's go with some green. As you notice, I'm not wiping my paint off the brush because, hey, this was the only foam brush I could find today. So let's put this right here. Yeah, it's not so much showing up so much. So let's try something different. I did get 2 of them. And I'm going to try this one with my StazOn ink, which is what I'm going to stamp some of my other images with, because I want my stuff to show up. So I'm going to ink it up real good, and I'm just going to stamp it down. And it shows up okay. Let's try, maybe I just thought we needed the padded surface. Maybe we don't. So we'll move that, put this back. We'll try this again. And I'll push really hard. And I think it's probably just the colors. If this was more white, I'm sure it would show up better. I hope it would show up better. So now we're going to take, I have some block printers numbers, and I'm going to stamp that in a couple of places. And now I'm just going to do some designs. I'm going to use my little swirly, and I'm going to add a little bit of swirls, hit and miss. See what happens when you use a real rubber stamp. I guess it makes all the difference in the world. Love swirlies. So I'm going to take some more circles, not swirlies, but some circles, and just stamp. Get some more color texture into this. And this one is another different circly one. Yeah, kind of nasty looking. It's hard to see what it is. I used it at class and somebody stamped it upside down. And then my favorite stamp, which if you ever watch any of my videos, I use this a whole lot. I have to do this one this way. It's just easier. And I'll stamp this right here. And you know the rule, it's got to be 3. So now I have it all stamped and I've painted on it, and it needs to dry. I'm going to take some tulle and lay over that. I'll sew around the outside edges, and then I am going to wild and crazy stitch this whole thing. and I'll be back and show you what it looks like. Hi, so I have all of my fabric stitched out. I put tulle over the top. Experiment, try different colors of tulle. They all give a little bit different look. I went with just the white, and it just kind of muffles it a little bit. And I think this in itself is pretty cool. But when I sewed it, I don't know if you can tell or not, it just kind of curled up. I got the tulle a little tighter than the fabric. So we're going to try another technique that you can do with this. We're going to use the heat gun, and we're going to melt the tulle. And that will stay within the stitches and melt outside of the stitches. And hopefully we don't catch on fire, but it will give a little bit of texture and change the coloring a little bit. I'm hoping you can see that melt. It's not completely melting away, but it's melting a little bit. And down in here, where it's a little bit snugger and wants to curl up. And I'm just kind of doing this at random. As you can see right here's a good spot where you can really see the difference in the colors. I don't want to do the whole thing. I like the tulle, but I sure like the feel and the texture of doing this. Besides, hey, I get to melt stuff. So I think that's going to be okay. I'm going to turn it over. As you can see, I stitched wild and crazy, no rhyme, no reason. And there we have the background for our next page. Okay, we have our page finished. Because I'm trying to make this whole process a little bit simpler, showing that you don't have to get really complicated on your journal pages, you know, I'm concentrating more on backgrounds. So to keep this page simple, I just put the little quote here, and I made my very first belly band. And I did the same thing on the back. I just did the one side. I put these cute little pieces of paper and stitched them on just to add some more texture and color. And then I had these little flowers cut out, so I just pressed it on there and pressed this one. And I must be in a pocket mode because I left this little side open. So you can tuck here, and you can tuck here, and you can tuck here. This way you've got all the pretty background and design and texture and color, plus all kinds of things you can stick in there. For the inside, I covered it in just a plain paper and put a pocket on it. So when it's sewn in, you can get into either side. Now I know a lot of people have had trouble putting paper on the back side of their cloth. And today what I did, and it really seemed to work really well, was I made my paper bigger than my fabric and just set it on there. And I stitched one side. And then I went ahead and folded it. I clamped all the edges so they were where they were supposed to be. And then I sewed down one way and down the other way. Again, I folded it, make sure everything was still lined up and in the right place. And then I stitched it this way, and then this way. When you lay this out flat, it doesn't really want to lay flat, but everything is compensated for. The thickness of the pocket and the fabric page and the paper page. And then I just trimmed it. So if you lay it like this, you will see a little bit of a pucker, but when you put it like this, like you're going to use it, it's all right.